Hello and welcome to Manny Botwe, who will be talking to us today about school culture, organisational management and governance and accountability linked to the SL programme. Welcome, Manny. Could I ask you to give a brief introduction to your role and experience?
Yeah, my name is Manny Botwe. I'm head teacher here at Titherington School, which is a large comprehensive in Macclesfield in Cheshire. It's an 11 to 18. I became head teacher here in September 2015, so I'm into my 7th year as head teacher. Prior to that, I was a deputy head teacher in charge of raising standards in a comprehensive in South Oxfordshire.
That's brilliant. Thank you and welcome. Okay, so could you tell us a little bit about how you have created a supportive climate for your workforce and pupils that promotes challenge, aspiration and high expectations?
Okay, thank you. First and foremost, what lies at the core of our school are our values. We talk about ourselves as being an ambitious school at the heart of the community, and that is something which features in everything we do, and we revisit those values on a daily basis. So we talk a lot about what ambition means, which for us is an understanding that our best days lay ahead of us. It's this sense of continuous improvement, and we're always asking ourselves a question: are we being ambitious enough? And in terms of the environment, there is a real sense, that when we talk about heart, we want our staff to be passionate about teaching, passionate about young people, and community, this sense that we're looking out for each other. Now, I mentioned the values has been really important because I think that sets the tone. And and that vision of ambition, heart and community means that when we're having conversations about performance and improvement and accountability, we're always asking ourselves, those questions. In terms of, practical thoughts around school organisation, we've done a lot of work as a staff in terms of the work of Patrick Lencioni in his book, The Advantage. And he talks about smart and healthy organisations. So this idea that successful organisations are both smart, that is, they have a deep understanding of technical expertise relating to their domain, but that crucially they're healthy. And that's really about relationships. And it's that sense that, are your relationships big enough to deliver on your strategic aims? And we look at school improvement, we look at improving teaching through those lens, through that lens. So when we talk about smartness, it's about having an absolute clarity about what great teaching looks like. And we make sure that is underpinned with a very, very clear rationale for the curriculum. So why are we doing what we're doing? Why have we chosen to study these units or this topic matter at this particular time? How do we sequence things? We base a lot of our decisions in terms of the latest research. So we're always looking into what has come out of the EEF, the Education Endowment Fund. We pay a lot of attention to what schools who are high performing schools are doing. So there's a huge emphasis on going to visit those schools who are performing better than ourselves and trying to get that sense of, well, what is it that they're doing that we can learn from? We're firm believers in sharing best practice within our school. Networking and local universities are really important. So that's how we build up this sense of being smart. In terms of the health of the school, we pay a lot of attention to building relationships. And really, as a leader, I think a lot of that comes from your ability to strategically plan for building trust in your school. And there's some practical things that we talk a lot about as senior leaders in terms of building trust. So we talk about the importance of credibility. So making sure that you're always honest and open and you tell the truth. You admit when you don't know something, you hold your hand up when things haven't gone well or you've done something wrong. That sense of reliability. So if we say we're going to do something, we make sure that we do it. And that means you have to be very, very careful about what you say to ensure that actually you can deliver. And there is that mantra in our senior leadership team of, if you're meant to do it, do it. Related to that sense of reliability is explaining the thought process. So, so in the area of curriculum development, for example, if we're thinking of changing or developing in a particular way, we feel it's really important to explain why we're doing that. And that also means that, we're open to alternative views, alternative ideas, disagreement. Teamship is crucial in building relationships. So that sense of building a sense of team, but also looking at your own behaviours and seeing whether they encourage other people to share or whether they close people down. I think if you are showing your vulnerability and showing, areas where you need the support of other people, I think that can be really, really quite good. And what sort of underpins, because I know that accountability is such a crucial aspect of leadership, is we've done a lot of work on the work of an author called Kim Scott, who's done some really good work on this concept of radical candor. And it's that sense that if you really genuinely believe in this sense of people first and employees second, then you owe it to staff to provide feedback that's done in a way that enables them to improve. And that sense of kind of radical candor, being absolutely open and frank, is at the core, I think, of accountability. Because I think where a lot of organizations fall down is that there isn't that trust, and there isn't that sense that feedback is being given from a place of a genuine commitment to improve. And we talk a lot about radical candor, having tricky conversations, and also ensuring that you're not prioritizing harmony over high performance. So for us, that's really, really important. I mean, the last bit I'd sort of say, because I've talked a lot about staff here, is that, culturally, it's so important that, all of your stakeholders are on board. So governors know what we're up to, parents and carers know what we're up to, but also the youngsters are on side. And we do that by making sure that we celebrate their achievements, that we're ambitious in terms of what we think they can achieve, but also they're included in terms of our communication. So they're just some of the things that we've thought about in terms of creating a climate where, there is a real sort of sense of challenge, aspirations, and high expectations.
Thank you. Well, I'll move on. Which principles and leadership behaviours underpin your leadership, and how do you use these in your leadership practice?
Okay, it's a very good question. I mean, I think I'd go back to that idea of being quite deliberate in terms of building relationships and building trust. And we're quite a stickler for that, actually. And what we will do following meetings and staff briefings, we'll review to what extent have we kind of developed relationships and built trust. So a practical example of that will be, on a fairly regular basis, as a senior leadership team, we will have the names of each and every member of staff in the school, and we will place ticks by those members of staff where we believe that we've had a deeper, meaningful conversation within the last 2 weeks. And where that isn't happening, that often shines a light in terms of, okay, we're not having enough conversations, we're not building relationships sensibly enough with those members of staff. So they're really, really important to us. As I said, that idea of being very, very open and upfront and honest, and paying attention to what we say. So as I said, this sense of saying, always do what you say you're going to do. What comes with that is that sense of, therefore, you need to be very, very careful. And if that means that you just have to be open and upfront and say, look, I can't promise this. I'm not going to say that we're going to do this because I can't promise that we're going to deliver that. that is you being open and honest. And I think if you do that and people see you doing that, you are setting the tone. Going back to that idea of radical candor, I've got to model that. And I've got to model that in terms of being able to receive feedback about my own performance. That's where governors come into it, because, if I take my own appraisal and my own performance management, that comes from governors. And that's a very public process, in terms of, we make it quite clear with the various teams around the school that here are my targets. These are the things I'm working on, not just in terms of whole school strategy, but also being quite open and vulnerable about the actual aspects of your leadership, which you are working on. So for me, an aspect that I'm working on is, making sure that the feedback that I give is as clear and as actionable as possible, making sure that the way in which I structure meetings allows everybody to contribute. I think when you're open and honest and you're transparent and you go first in terms of you revealing your own vulnerabilities, I think that can be, hugely useful.
Thank you. That's really clear. And it leads slightly into our next question here, which is, how do you know your principles and behaviours are effective?
Okay, thank you. I mean, I think one of the most important things is making sure that you quality assure all you do. So for us, that's opening ourselves up to external scrutiny. And that's not just in terms of, publicly available examination results, which allow you to kind of compare performance with other schools. That's also about inviting different schools and different organisations to come in and observe what you're doing and for them to give you honest feedback in terms of, look, here are the things that we think you're doing really well. Here are the things that we feel that you need to build on. Here are the things that we feel aren't going so well. So I think being brave enough to open yourself up to external scrutiny is important, but also making sure that you have those internal quality assurance processes that enable you to kind of periodically review how well you're doing against a stated objective. So that might be, diarising things like lesson drop-ins, lesson observations and feedbacks, reviews of assessment, reviews of curriculum checkpoints to make sure that youngsters are covering the stated curriculum. So all of those things are important, but also not forgetting that ultimately this is about the young people. They're the acid test. So if we want to know whether or not we've created a culture of inclusivity, or whether we've created a culture of ambition, or the focus on literacy and numeracy is successful, we have to ask the young people. We have to look at the work that they're producing. We have to listen to them read. We have to get a sense of how they are performing within the classroom. So I think ensuring that you've got that external input, as well as diarising regular internal quality assurance, and just making sure that you're kind of calibrating that with a wider network of schools and organisations. I think that they are critical when it comes to kind of, making an assessment. In terms of whether or not, me as a leader, sometimes what I want to do is I want to get a sense of, okay, if I've set these personal targets of offering better and more actionable feedback, then I might actually take part in 360, where I'm asking staff to kind of comment on whether or not they feel that particular aspects of my leadership are working well or not so well. So I think opening yourself up, particularly to the team around you, to that scrutiny can be really, really effective. I also have a coach, so that helps me talk through anything that's on my mind. It also gives me the confidence to kind of be brave and courageous in terms of, leadership conundrums.
That's great. Thank you. And finally, again, you did touch on this slightly when you talked about your appraisal, but in what ways are you accountable and to whom?
That's a very good question. I mean, I guess ultimately I'm accountable to the young people in the community because we are here to serve them. And so, you know, all of the things that I talked about in terms of, you know, performance, you know, results, you know, when youngsters leave here on their final day, you know, which is often when they come and open up the envelope, even for their A-levels or GCSEs, that is an acid test. They'll know whether or not they've got a real good deal from us. And it's not necessarily about the letters and the numbers that they get. It's about whether they know that they have had the best opportunity in terms of not just their exam preparation, but in life. You know, from a values perspective, we talk about wanting to create A-star youngsters. You know, those are youngsters who are resilient, who stand up for what they believe in, who have a sense of place, who will go and make their mark in the world. So that's the ultimate accountability. But in more practical sense, you know, governance is really important. So I you know, have to present details and data about how the school is doing on a pretty regular basis. You know, we have full governing bodies, standards and outcomes, you know, finance. So there's a number of different ways in which governors are holding me accountable for the performance of the school. But, you know, we'll also kind of have open lines of communication with parents. So we'll regularly have parent forums, or we'll regularly send out surveys, or I might meet with focus groups. And they're ways in which we kind of get a sense and find out a bit more about our progress towards the aims that we've set ourselves.
Thank you for that. And thank you, Manny, for taking the time to share your practice, your experience and your thoughts with us today. That's been really helpful.
Not a problem at all. Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you.